going to have a conversation with Dr. Mthuli Ncube. He's the Chief Economist and Vice President of the African Development Bank. Today we're going to have several interesting conversations with him. We're going to talk about the recent GDP rebasing efforts by several African economies. We're going to talk about the efforts by the African Development Bank to improve data collection across the African continent. We're also going to talk about how the African Development Bank differs from other development finance institutions like the World Bank, etc., that are operating in the African continent. So thank you once again and welcome to the conversation. We always talk about inviting multinationals to African countries, FDI. Now the question is there a danger? So we see a lot of companies, some of them not paying taxes. How do we ensure that, when we're looking at FDI, you're actually reaping, the African countries are actually reaping the full dividends of FDI and making sure that some of the through taxation, some of the profits from these companies stay within Africa?
From our research, we know that somewhere between $50 to $60 billion a year comes into Africa as foreign direct investment, FDI. But at the same time, we know a similar amount leaves clandestinely out of Africa as illicit outflows. The main culprit is tax evasion, plus transfer pricing and all of that stuff, all manner of schemes. So it's very important for African countries to be clear and be astute about reaping the full dividend of FDI. I've seen tax breaks being given to certain investment. For instance, in the mining sector, sometimes I do wonder whether it's necessary to have some of these tax breaks, because surely if a foreign company is able to set up first of all, it has got a foreign holding company and then a subsidiary locally, and then the foreign holding company gives a shareholder loan to the subsidiary on the ground, and it can always declare losses domestically and never pay government any taxes. So what's the point about tax breaks and tax incentives and so forth? So we have to be careful here.
Tax breaks,
it's not obvious to me that they need the tax breaks. Besides, there's just so much transfer pricing, tax avoidance, that they know how to give themselves tax breaks, these companies.
Totally.